Welcome to the Proactive Podcast, brought to you by Me Media.
G'day, well, Chris Hogan coming into you from Me Media Studio for episode 126 of the Proactive Podcast. And I have with me today Emily Johnson from Get Mentally Fit. How are you, Emily?
I'm good. Good morning, Chris.
Very good. So Get Mentally Fit, it says on your website, partnering with people to create sustainable mental fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break that down for us? What is the problem that's occurring in the workplace that you help solve?
Well, we mainly work with small to medium-sized business owners, people whose businesses are actually thriving, and they're trying to keep up, and they're suffering perhaps stress, overwhelm, anxiety, and they don't have great clarity of thought. And we help them to, implement some mental fitness strategies and practices so that they can feel in control and get on top of their business. So they're not so operational, they can be strategic, which is always the ultimate goal of a small business owner. And looking at it from that perspective of maintaining their mental health as if it's their physical health. So similar attitude in that regard.
So if I liken it to physical a little bit, I'm sort of seeing the root of the problem being like overwork, high adrenals, constantly bouncing from one task to the next, meeting to meeting, Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting.
Yep.
And we're not allowing ourselves to recover.
Recovery is a huge factor when it comes to mental health and maintaining your mental fitness. It's something that is probably overlooked in a lot of circumstances, like taking breaks can be deemed unnecessary and a waste of time, whereas they're actually very important in maintaining concentration, in maintaining focus, in looking after your performance throughout the day. You need a healthy stress level, but you also need to be able to have those punctuations of gaps.
Okay, so when like smokos and 15-minute smoking breaks were, a thing, and I kind of remember them a lot through the 90s, watching, workplaces, you see people exiting the doors and going out for 15 minutes and coming back in. They do that probably 4 or 5 times a day. And then, of course, smoking has been less popularized. It's, a lot of people have given it up, and there's certainly less, acceptable. It's certainly a less acceptable behavior
Unhealthy
at work.
habit, yeah.
At workplaces. No, I just mean, like, for example, like the smell of smoke.
Sure.
On clothing, on breath, in the workplace is we work closely together, so it's deemed unacceptable for everybody's health. So, but there was a thing about that, in that people were at least taking breaks. They were, having regular 15-minute breaks and between meetings and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we've certainly knocked that back now. It seems we just got to bounce from meeting to meeting and task to task. So the root of the problem is that we're not breaking enough during the day, or what's sort of happening?
Yeah, I guess that's one aspect of that attitude. I've got to push through, and I've got to get through all this work. So some people do have that attitude of, I can't take breaks and I'm so busy. That is definitely. I remember years ago I wrote an article called "Sitting is the New Smoking."
Oh yeah, I've got that book behind me.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, desk bound.
Brilliant. That is one kind of, I guess, negative habit that people do. And it's quite, and that's where we come in with a lot of the work that we do, is teaching people how to create new healthy habits that are going to sustain them.
The sitting is the new smoking.
Yeah.
And that we're just flowing through work and all of that sort of stuff. So, where do we need to what do we need to change in the workplace, like around that? Is it take more breaks? or is there more to it?
Yeah, there is. So what the research shows us is if we work optimally in about 90-minute chunks, and then after that 90 minutes, we need to take a short break. And I'm talking a short break, like 3 to 5 minutes, something that is going to energize us and enable us to get back into the flow of work that we've been doing.
That feels to me like there's more pressure, like 3 to 5 minutes. I've got to have a break. I've got to have a coffee. I've got to have a drink of water. I've got to eat something in 3 to 5 minutes. Got to have a bio break, as the polite way to say.
Yeah.
So in 3 to 5 minutes, like that feels like too much pressure on its own.
But what the research shows is if you take longer than that period of time, then it's actually harder for you to then get back into the flow of work. So we're really looking for something that is just going to give you a quick energy burst and a distraction from what you are doing, so that you're not in that concentration mode, attempting to be in that concentration mode for a long period of time. So that's what that's all about.
Wow. So, geez, the researchers are hard. They drive a hard task. So I personally feel like, my best performance, yes, 90 minutes is absolutely perfect for me in the morning. And then I tend to shift to 45-minute sessions.
Yep.
So 45-minute, 15-minute break, 45-minute, 15-minute break.
Yep.
And in those 15 minutes, I have to be highly structured. So that could mean that it's 5 minutes for bio stuff. So eat, drink, bathroom, maybe a bit of sunshine. But the other part is, especially when I've got back to back, my whole week is back to back, it's meditation.
Yep.
So then I throw in, probably 10 or 8 minutes meditation in there and breathing exercises.
Yeah.
So am I close? Am I doing good there? Or is it more just like whatever works for each individual?
Completely. And you've hit the nail on the head. So, anyone sort of considering putting in some practices to look after their mental health, mental fitness, it's very individual. So what works for you may not work for someone else. So when it comes to well-being, the way that I spruik it is it's DIY. So you've got to figure it out for yourself. I can give you the research and I can talk to you about different positive psychology interventions and practices, but it's what's going to resonate with you and what's going to work for you and what you can fit into your day. And also having that consideration of whatever it is that you're going to be doing kind of needs to be thematic along with what you normally do in your day. So as an example, if you have a cup of coffee and that is a stimulant to you and it's a way of kind of waking you up and getting you going in the morning, that's kind of the time where you would do your priority list. Whereas if a coffee is a relaxant, then that could be when you tag that with meditation or something along those lines. So getting that thematic consistency with the different things that you're doing and habit stacking is a really effective way to kind of bring in new practices to your day. But it is very individual. Yeah.
Habit stacking.
Habit stacking.
That's a cool term.
Yes.
Right. So what about like exercise during the day and maybe like eating and sleeping, or eating and resting? So, okay. So many questions here. But for example, lunchtime comes.
Yep.
If I eat a big meal, then I'm super lethargic after lunch. Like,
Sure.
forget about it. Like,
Food coma.
Almost can't start work, like turning the brain back on until about 3 o'clock.
Yep.
Sometimes if it's if it's a 12:30 lunch, for example, so the brain's needs almost an hour and a half of just like get up and go again to really start again. Even I find my brain turning on at 5 p.m. It's like, okay, now I'm ready to go, and I could power out another 90 minutes from 5 to 6:30. So, but that's home time. So is there some, I guess, tweaks to maybe like when I should eat or what I should eat? Do you ever get into that with people?
Oh, definitely. So with any leader or individual that I work with, it's really around, okay, well, when are your energy points in the day and how's your metabolism and when are you eating and when are you resting? And having that realization, like as I mentioned before, prioritizing is a highly cognitive task. So you want to do that when you're most alert, which is it's usually about 2 hours after you wake up. So that's when you're getting into work, that if you're getting up around 6:37, so maybe around that 9:30, 3 hour mark, 2 hour mark. So and really having doing a bit of a dissect of your day as to, well, how is it playing out and what is working for me and what can I do more of is always the stance that I come from, to determine, well, what other things can we do that are going to be really supportive to you and are going to enable you to gain more energy from what you do.
Okay. Really cool. I kind of think it's just human nature. It's instinctive, you know. It goes way back to when we were apes. Yeah. And whether or not we were or not, we certainly are related. So the morning, it's time to get up. It's time to find food. It's time to put the fire on, maybe, or you got to get up and going. And then you've exhausted all your energy going and doing that hunting and gathering and whatnot. And then through the middle of the day, you've probably, it's like, come on.
Need a nap.
I need a nap.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of naps.
Yeah. And in fact, we've got a guy here, our creative, master in the office. He naps every lunch.
Excellent.
Yeah. So most are going for around 45 minutes.
Okay.
But he tends to only crack around 20 minutes.
That's optimal.
Yeah. He based that on, I think Einstein used to do 20-minute naps.
Yeah, well, Salvador Dali, he used to sit on a chair with keys in his hand. And then as he was sort of falling into that slumber, the keys would drop and wake him up. And then he would have insights and produce his best work.
Sick.
Yeah.
I got to try this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then, the 5 p.m. thing, it's like, okay, it's either food, fire, put the fire on. It's, waked on. It's when everything's awake, it's survival, be ready and get in your cave and make sure you're safe.
Well, I listen a lot to Dr. Huberman. He's a neuroscientist. He's got a podcast as well. And he, interestingly, was talking about these different energy points during the day and exactly what you're talking about. And he said that some people also may suffer from having that real spurt of energy 1 hour before you go to sleep. I don't know whether you...
Oh, sometimes,
yeah. And he said that kind of goes back to caveman days where we had to make sure that everybody was safe and, that everyone was inside the cave and warm and there was no predators around, etc. So you're in that high alert state. And a lot of people don't understand, why am I so alert before I'm supposed to be going to sleep? Not everybody kind of experiences this, but it is something that he says is quite common, and it's kind of you got to go with it. So that's the time when you clean up the kitchen, you tidy the house, you make sure all the curtains and doors are locked and things like that, and then you can kind of get into your bedtime routine. But it's again just understanding when are those points in the day for me where I do get those bursts of energy and how can I utilize that to my best ability.
No, 8 p.m. I'm normally cactus and then it's like, okay, book. Or if the book's not going to cut it, then maybe I will watch something.
Right.
But refuse to work. I've changed that habit from years ago.
Excellent.
And then it's always work in the morning. So 5 a.m. get up.
Right.
Do whatever I need to do and
no
going.
Disturbances, no noise.
Nothing, and sometimes have to do it earlier, depending on how early your kids are getting up.
Yep.
Great. All right. So. I'm fascinated by this stuff, and I think I'm constantly tweaking what I'm doing all the time, and heavily focus on my nutrition and exercise, cold showers and whatnot. But look, that's me. Now, so going into the workplace, and the goal of employers is to have a happier, healthier, workplace, so a great workplace culture. So if you're actually supporting people in I guess, feeling more energized throughout the day, and therefore not feeling like, oh, this is just so laborious and just such a grind, then that wears people down. Grind, what a word to use. It really wears people down. So I guess you're helping people, energize themselves, stay energized, and stay motivated. What are we right in that?
Yeah, completely. It's really, our focus is around them performing at their best and enjoying what they do and contributing toward whatever it is and whomever they're working with, in a way that is going to have an impact.
Yep.
So yeah.
Okay. So look, what we do something similar, and it's not from a psychological point of view. I guess it is related, but we're definitely not working with people's, daily routines and breaks and foods and all of that sort of stuff and workflow. We're definitely focused on, identifying the values of the workplace and how people can align their own values to the core values of the company and therefore, we call it build a brand on purpose. So can I come back to you? What actually got you into psychology? What was did somebody inspire you to do that, or was there some value set that you held?
I worked in corporate, so I was an executive for a big franchise company, doing a lot of training and supporting of the managing directors and the executive teams, and I didn't have the qualifications behind me, so I kind of came to a ceiling of what I could do, and I went to the local University Griffith to look for a training and interpersonal skills course, and they at the time had these certificates in psychology. So I started very late. I didn't go to university until I was 30, and I did that certificate and went, wow, corporate psychology is, because I was kind of involved in all of that with supporting leaders at the time anyway, but just didn't have those qualifications. So went through and did 8 years of study, but just loved corporate organisational psychology from the get-go. I wasn't interested in clinical. It was all about the workplace and people having that work-life satisfaction and getting the best out of what they do for their profession, and supporting their own personal life. So that's kind of how I started my career in psychology, I guess, is through training and developing other people.
Great. So is there somebody that you grew up admiring, or somebody that you admire, like a celebrity or even a workplace leader, that I guess had a value set that you identified with?
Well, I grew up in the UK in the 70s, 80s. So there was obviously all the big bands then, Queen, Madonna and Duran Duran and all those kind of people. But I really resonated with all the comedians. So the likes of Rowan Atkinson, Lenny Henry and Ruby Wax, if you're familiar with her.
No.
So
what
she's
about the two Ronnies?
Yeah, the two Ronnies are great.
Love the two Ronnies.
Yeah, and the young ones. Yep. Ruby Wax has gone on, and funnily enough, she's a mental health advocate, and she recently did her master's in mindfulness and cognitive behavioural therapy. So she's a huge advocate in the UK.
Recently
for mental health.
Before you or after
2013 she did her master's.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
was that around the same time that you did yours, or?
No, I finished my master's in 2013.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Was she showing signs of going down that track earlier?
Well, no, she was a comedian, so she contributed to shows like Absolutely Fabulous, if you're familiar with that one. She's absolutely hilarious, and she's just really kind of authentic and raw in her approach. So that's what I loved about her when growing up. Yeah, because she was just so different. Yeah,
my wife loves Absolutely Fabulous, but I can't stand it. But,
it is a bit staged. Yeah.
So the value sets that maybe Ruby held, did you did you feel like you identified with those at all? Like,
Oh, completely. Like that.
what
that
could you
aspect.
describe some of them?
Yeah, well, I guess that aspect of not taking life too seriously and engaging always with a sense of humour really kind of resonates with me, because a lot of what I do is quite serious in the sense of helping people perform and think clearly. But I think you've got to bring in your personality to that so that people can relate to you and feel comfortable and safe. So, yeah, I guess that's the synergy there.
So do you crack lots of jokes at work?
No.
You
Not
like a bit of stand-up
necessarily.
when you do a bit of stand-up when you're standing at the front and presenting?
No, not at all. God, no.
Okay. So then how does this align to your sort of personal purpose? What would you say that is in life? Like, who are you in life?
Well, I guess if you had asked me that 20 years ago, you'd get a very different response.
Of course.
A more self-serving, self-centered response, in that as I said, I didn't start uni until I was 20. So my life was all about travel and experiencing different cultures and visiting as many countries as I possibly could. I guess with age and maturity and studying, it's changed slightly. Still needing that kind of adventure and travel. That's very important to me. But it's more around, I guess, me thinking, behaving and being my best self and supporting others to do the same. So very much in that space of translating from the literature and the research, what are practical ways that we can show up and be our best self. That's kind of like my goal, purpose in life, and teaching other people that.
Okay, so how does that show up at home?
How does that show up at home? Oh, you better ask my husband that rather than me.
Yeah. So you find that, do you have children?
Yes, yeah, we have a daughter, 11. She's
Yeah.
11, yeah.
Do you find that you got that nurturing sort of behaviour at home, and that you're always encouraging that adventurous life and stuff at home as well?
Most definitely. So my daughter is intellectually impaired. So our attitude with her is always, what can she do, not what can't she do. So it's always looking for the positive and always exploring ways in which she can express herself and enjoy what she's doing and get the best out of who she's spending time with. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like exactly like what workplaces need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
What can you do,
Yep.
not what can't you do,
Yep,
and get the
completely.
best out of that environment.
Totally.
Awesome. And so that definitely sounds like it's translated into your brand, like it's transferred into your brand. That personal purpose has come through in your brand purpose as well.
Yeah, most definitely. So we're all about, we are, I guess as an overall, from a brand purpose, we're very much in that space of, flipping the conversation of mental health on its head and having people and trying to challenge that stigma around mental health and encouraging what I was talking about before, the daily practice of looking after your mental health and mental fitness is fundamentally. And then the other kind of aspect is what we've been talking about is, okay, well, what can we do on a regular basis to support our mental health and mental fitness and physical fitness as an overall? Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you feel like every business needs to implement? Do you have some kind of like top 3?
I think, well, in today's sort of yes, I think psychological safety is probably the one big thing that there's a lot of talk about at the moment, and there needs to be a little bit more understanding as to how to develop that within an organisation so that people feel that they can step forward and they can put forward their ideas and be creative and not feel ridiculed in any which way. I'd say that's probably a big thing, because that's where, conversations can be stunted, or who shouts the loudest in a brainstorming session is going to be heard. And those different personality types may not put forward their ideas because they might not feel safe, or they're just not extroverted, or whatever the situation. So I'd say psychological safety is one thing that organisations, that I encourage a lot of leaders within organisations to focus on.
In my language, that would just allow people to be heard.
Yeah, it's about feeling secure and non-threatened, so that your brain has the ability to be creative and be in a calm state, which will instigate ideas. Whereas if you are, in feeling in any which way in a threatened state, then you're going to switch off. You're not going to listen, and you're going to cope, and you're going to try and get the hell out of there. So it's really around creating a space where people feel that they are heard, as you say, that they can speak up and they can put forward their ideas, and they can encourage others to do the same.
Okay.
And so there's that accountability aspect as well. And that's probably another thing, if you're looking for a couple of things around what I would encourage businesses to focus and incorporate, is accountability doesn't fall to the leader, it falls to everybody. So we all need to make each other accountable, rather than it just being reliant on one person and a task list.
Yeah. So also allowing, I guess, when you may have a certain individual in the office that is quite boisterous and I guess strong-willed, they can make other people feel like they're not allowed to express their points of view too. So it's like you say, it's not just the leader; it's also others within the workplace.
So it's having workplace practices that facilitate those maybe quieter individuals to have their voice.
Yeah.
So whether that's questions that you use, or a system that you use prior to having meetings to gather information, whatever it is that's going to work in an organisation.
Who's best to broach these topics of conversation with individuals? Is it like when there's clearly an issue occurring in the workplace that can be identified? Who is best to bring that up? Is it the leader, or is it always better to bring in have a HR person, or bring in a consultant to?
Well, I mean, that's a bit of a difficult question to answer, because I guess it depends on the situation. And if you're going with what I was saying about accountability, if you're identifying it and you're not the leader, then my answer would be, well, you need to bring it up, because everybody's accountable to each other. And if something is a blockage, then it needs to be addressed. So I guess it depends on the situation and the consequences of whatever it is that's happening as to who does what. Yeah.
So mental health, I believe, is almost the new buzzword. I've struggled with mental health, just not feeling like I wanted to continue in this business.
Right.
After some, a long period of time, over 10 years working in the business, I was like, we saw a downturn, and I was like, come on, I think I'm done here.
Right.
Gave myself a bit of a uppercut and went, nah, pull my boots on and went, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
So, but there's certainly times when, it gets tough in business, and we do, as leaders, have to pick ourselves up and get going constantly. Now, I believe if you are solving a huge problem, and that if you focus on solving that problem, then that's going to motivate you. But with regards to, I guess, getting your team on board with these concepts, and making sure that everybody is rowing in the same direction, issues come up. And so, like, if I identify these issues as a leader, that we're not really rowing in the same direction, or we're not following the same value sets, then the question I'm asking is, do I bring that up with the individuals? Do I bring it up as a group, or am I best to bring in a consultant?
Yes, I guess it depends on your skills as a leader as to whether or not you have the ability to create that psychological safety if you're going to talk to that person individually or talk to everyone as a team. Because if you're bringing someone else in externally, they could be more objective as to what's going on and sort of see things that you don't necessarily see that are blind spots. And they will also be able to identify strengths within the team that you may not see as well. So, I mean, obviously, as an external consultant, I'm going to say that because that's my experience of going into businesses and helping in these sorts of situations, because you're very close to it and you're very passionate. This is your business per se, and something's not working in the business, it's hurting, I have to fix this. So, but you might not necessarily be the best person, but you might.
Can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah.
Bit too close.
Yeah,
We're stuck in the
exactly.
trenches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's always good to get that outside perspective, even if you're just talking to a coach or a corporate psychologist or whatever, or whoever it is, for you to get clear on, okay, well, what is the issue here before I kind of approach this with the team or the individual? What am I trying to address and what am I trying to change?
Yeah. Very good. Look, I think that's great advice that, both work, that a leader can approach the individual or the team on these types of things. But sometimes, an outsider's point of view is absolutely, so good to hear. It's the same in marketing,
Yeah,
That's
of course.
why we get to go and people just go, look, we know what we do every single day, but we actually don't know how to communicate that to to people outside of this organisation. We're just too close to the problem.
Yeah.
Isn't that that's a strange psychological phenomenon in itself?
Yeah, it is. It's almost a mental block. Yeah.
So, look, I'm gonna go to a question that I know is it's not a very nice thing to have to ask.
Okay.
But
You're making me nervous.
yeah, what happens when people start using mental health as a almost like a psychological way of manipulating the leaders in the organisation to give them more time off? I'm finding there's a little bit of that going on now with mental health being, it is a thing. We've accepted that.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure most organisations are well on board with, hey, yes, look, if you need people are saying, hey, I need a mental day off or a mental health day off or something along those lines. But somewhere along the line, they start using that same terminology all of the time when it might just be that they've got a hangover or
Right.
or whatnot.
Bit of malingering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So they're changing that. Oh, I'm having a sickie to no, I need a mental health day off. Tricky. I guess topic to discuss with people. Like. What do you think the best course of action is for leaders to take when they sort of think that people are kind of abusing their trust and their kindness?
Well, I do a lot of training of mental health in the workplace. So having that "Are you okay?" conversation. So that's a starting point in upskilling leaders to basically go there and ask the question around "Are you okay?" and really drawing in some evidence around why the concern is there, and what the evidence is to support you approaching them and saying, well, this has changed, you're doing this, you're doing that, etc. So I do a lot in that space to upskill leaders in how to have these conversations, so that they are comfortable and confident to broach this subject, not necessarily around someone who may be malingering or taking advantage, etc. And I think another really important aspect is for leaders and their teams to get some language around mental health, and understanding as to what is a mental health condition versus, say, what is stress and overwhelm. Because stress is not a mental health condition. And really building that language within the team so that everybody has a broad understanding of what people are experiencing and the emotional reaction that they're having to whatever it is that they're undertaking, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think it's a tricky one if you've got employees who are sort of pushing the boundaries slightly. I mean, a lot of businesses do implement doona days or duvet days, as they're called in the UK, where you have a couple of days, as you say, the mental health care days or whatever you want to call them, that are specific to I just need time out. I just need a break.
How often are they sort of being implemented?
Depending on the business, but usually 2 to 4 days a year is that, and it's
so
either
once a quarter kind of thing.
Yeah, it's either incorporated in your generic sick days or it's additional too. So that's something that I'm seeing quite a bit of with various businesses that they are implementing and permitting that.
The construction industry's had RDOs for forever, so I guess for corporates, it's kind of the same thing. We need to kind of put that RDO in there, but call it a doona day if you like.
Yeah.
I personally would call it going to the beach and surfing and massage and all of those other things.
Yeah.
But fantastic. So, what do you think that around this popularization of discussing mental health that leaders can do? What options do they have around this now? And you kind of alluded to it before, but is it important that they start having these discussions in a group setting and training not only themselves up but also their team? Like, where do they start? Do they start with themselves first?
Most definitely. Yeah. You've got to put that oxygen mask on her first before you can help someone else, that old adage. Most definitely.
So the leader starts first.
Yes.
Puts the oxygen mask on and then obviously helps everybody else off the aircraft.
Yes. Yeah.
No, we're not suggesting that. I guess plenty of businesses are doing very well. So we're not suggesting that any business that's having this conversation is trying to pull their plane up from a dive, death dive. So everybody should be having this conversation.
Yeah, they do, but I think what needs to be very clear when it comes to mental health and approaching it in the workplace is your role within all of this and the boundaries of your role, and also the fact that you should never support someone individually. It needs to be a team effort where you're incorporating internal supports or external supports for that individual. So that's something, when I do a lot of the mental health training in the workplace, that's something that I really do stress, is you're not the psychologist. Your role is to identify and to recognise and respond and then support. But you don't necessarily need to provide that support. You need to be able to direct them to what support is available.
Well, wasn't that a lifeline, leaders? You do not have to be the psychologist. Thank you, Emily, for throwing us that beautiful, lifeline, that life raft. That we do just need to be able to understand what those things are that are occurring in the workplace, and you can help us do that. So awesome! What a great service. And this is no ad. Like, absolutely, I 100% agree with what you're doing. And you're not the only service out there. We know that. But you are local to Gold Coast and you're servicing. Zoom opened you up to service beyond the Gold Coast as well?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we get clients all around Australia. Yeah.
What a fantastic piece of tech that is. Okay. Well, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm here with Emily Johnson from Get Mentally Fit, and they can check you out at getmentallyfit.com.au. Is there any socials that you frequent?
We are on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks again for watching. This is the Proactive Podcast. we're all about discovering people's purpose, values, and helping you to translate those into your brand purpose and values, which underpin your marketing. We have a book coming out soon, Building Brands on Purpose. I say I, my first book, so be kind. Comes out in July, and I hope you get to check that out too. It will be available across all of the ways to consume books, let alone I'm going to have to read the whole thing and record it. So, but, I can talk, so it should be right. Thanks again. Check us out. All the episodes are available at memedia.com.au, and check out Me Media's YouTube page as well. That's where all the episodes are hiding, and also we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. Thanks again. See you again soon. Cheers. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.